Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening and welcome everyone to the December 17th meeting of the Ashland City Council. To our viewers at home and audience, thank you for joining us this evening. To members of council, Attorney Bush, Director Paxton, welcome all. Our mayor is not with us this evening. He is serving in his official capacity in Columbus, and we excuse him this evening. So, relatively short agenda, but to begin, we'll start with the approval of the minutes from the December 3rd meeting. And if there are no additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes, I'll ask for a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Lawson.
Aye.
Aye.
Kyle.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes will stand approved. First ordinance this evening will, well, let me back up here. We're removing ordinance A from the agenda. Moving right to B then, we have an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to amend appropriations for the calendar year 2024 and declare an emergency.
Move for non-reading in full.
Second.
Thank you.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Kyle.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Aye.
Good evening.
Evening, Larry.
The ordinance before you is an additional appropriations ordinance. It is monies that was additionally received unanticipated in the 2024 appropriations. And in doing that, it allows the city to do a couple little projects in relatively short order within the next week or so. If you recall, the city was able to successfully sell some land at the industrial park. This allows some economic development activities to happen. They will not use all 100,000 of it. I think it's like $28,000 or $29,000 of that money. But I'm trying to anticipate if anything else were to come up between now and the end of the year. The other is a stormwater project to allow some additional revenue that we did not anticipate collecting to be used for an existing project that needs to be completed between now and the end of the year.
Very good. Questions, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve on the first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Second, thank you.
Workman.
Aye.
Kyle.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
I'll move to suspend the rules for 3 separate readings, 3 separate days.
Second.
Thank you.
Kyle.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye. Motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Kyle.
Aye.
Ordinance 83-24.
Ordinance C will be an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to transfer funds within the annual appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Move for non-reading in full.
Second.
Thank you.
Workman.
Aye.
Kyle.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
The ordinance that you have before you this evening is a ordinance, this money you had previously appropriated within the 2024 appropriations. This is allowing us to move some money around to meet some of the more immediate needs that in an effort to complete the year in a positive position. It includes the general fund, park, transit, probation fund, sewer, sanitation, as well as the income tax fund. These are unanticipated or unanticipated expenditures within those funds. Again, you had previously appropriated that money. It's just moving it around in an effort to meet the needs of those individual lines on the right-hand side so that we can complete the year.
Very good. Questions for Mr. Paxton? Larry, before I forget, we'll still need a special meeting on the 30th, correct?
That's coming up, yes.
Okay, thank you. So with that, is there a motion to approve on the first reading?
So moved.
Thank you.
Kyle. Aye. Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye. Again, I'll move to suspend the rules for 3 separate readings, 3 separate days. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Kyle.
Aye.
Oh. There you go. Microphone switch. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Kyle.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Ordinance 84-24.
All right. Moving down to ordinance D, or item D, I should say, will need to be read in full due to the late arrival, which is no problem. With that, I'll begin. We have an ordinance authorizing the issuing of a then and now certificate for the following attached expenditures for the city of Ashland, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Whereas the city of Ashland, Ohio has authorized the purchase of the attached expenditures, and whereas such purchase for goods and services has now been completed, and whereas the Ohio Revised Code, Section 5705.41D, requires a certificate of the fiscal officer of the subdivision to be issued for contracts and expenditures are incurred, and whereas the attached fire division invoice totaling $13,230.06 was authorized before a purchase order with a certificate was issued for said encumbrances, and whereas the attached invoices exceed $3,000 threshold amount the Director of Finance can issue, and whereas this council desires to affirm and ratify such expenditures and authorize the issuing of a then and now certificate for said expenditures, and whereas for the above reason, this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, property, health, safety, and welfare of said city of Ashland, Ohio. Now therefore be it ordained by the council of the city of Ashland, Ohio. Members thereto concurring. Section 1, that the Director of Finance is authorized to issue a then and now certificate on behalf of the City Council of the City of Ashland, Ohio, and in doing so, pay the invoices attached hereto. And Section 2, for this reason, it is necessary to provide authorization for the issuing of a then and now certificate and payment of said invoices. This ordinance is declared to be an emergency measure immediately necessary for the preservation of the public peace, property, health, safety, and welfare of the city of Ashland. And Section 3, the ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after its passage by council and approval according to Section 12 of the Charter of the city of Ashland, Ohio. So ends the reading. Larry, I'll hand it over to you for.
The ordinance that you have before you is an expenditure that the fire division incurred. It was included wiring of their station. I believe they received the Marks radio tones, and this allows them to receive that and kind of broadcast that, from what I understand, within the department. So if there are firefighters out servicing the trucks or the vehicles or whatever, that tone would come across and they would be able to hear that while they're in the station, maybe not in the office or doing paperwork or something like that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it was done in October. Purchase order was created in November, and it missed the deadline for this council meeting. So I do apologize to you, Councilman Workman, that you had to read that for us. I certainly apologize for that, but
Not a problem.
at the same time, it is an expenditure that we have incurred, and it does need to be paid.
Right. Any discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve on the first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Miller,
Aye.
Woodward,
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
I will again move to suspend the rules for 3 separate readings, 3 separate days.
Second.
Thank you.
Woodward,
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Ordinance 85-24.
All right. We have a few minutes left. We'll move right down to resolutions before we begin our public hearing for the proposed 2025 appropriations. The resolution reads as follows in summary. We have a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Ohio Department of Transportation by the City of Ashland for grants through the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration, and the State of Ohio for fiscal year 2026, as authorized by federal transit laws and State of Ohio laws, executing a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation upon project approval and declaring an emergency.
Move for non-reading in full. Second.
Thank you.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, in mayor's absence, this is a resolution that we've seen regularly over the past few years. It is simply authorizing the mayor to pursue funding for our transit system. And with that, are there any questions, concerns, discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the resolution on the first reading?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Again, I'll move to suspend the rules for 3 separate readings, 3 separate days.
Second.
Thank you.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
Thank you.
Workman.
Aye.
Tyler.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Woodward.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Resolution 12-24.
All right.
That took a minute.
Yeah.
Now this.
We are down to our public hearing item. For 7:15, we can always start late, but we can never start early. So we will wait 2 minutes, and with that, I'll move through the agenda. We have no old business or new business unless council has something to bring forward. Hearing none, we'll move right to Finance Director's report. Larry, if you have anything additional.
Not really. I was going to reserve my comments for the appropriations, so.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. Council comments? Mr. Kyle?
For those that attended and those that didn't, it was, the Christmas parade was absolutely fantastic. Tens of thousands of people were there, I'm sure, at least in spirit. And, got through the night in a pretty, fine fashion. For the first time, though, I actually heard a little rumblings of people complaining about the litter.
What it was?
No, well, it was very, very cold. It could have been a little less windy,
Yeah.
right?
I'm
But
sorry to
about the
interrupt.
litter the next morning,
Oh,
and that's really uncommon for us. So I don't know, maybe too many out of towners. No, just kidding. But Merry Christmas to everybody, and great to be here for another year.
All right, Mr. Miller?
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody.
I just want to give a shout out to Brooks Whitmore. He provided the vintage cars that the council rode in the parade. So I just want to thank him for allowing us to ride in those vehicles. And Merry Christmas.
Mr. Lawson?
I just wanted to say a special thank you to the Ashland community. I work at the Salvation Army, and we have adopted family and the Angel Tree, and the overabundance of toys that have been given for kids to have a happy Christmas, a Merry Christmas, has just been overwhelming. We have probably twice as many as we had last year. And last year, we had nearly 1,600 toys that we gave away. And I think we've got twice that. You know, usually when expenses go up and inflation goes up, donations go down. But this year, the Ashland community really came through, and we have such an overwhelming blessing of toys. And I just want to say thank you. And because of that, a lot of kids are going to have a really nice Merry Christmas. We got bicycles, we got coats, we got hats, we got all sorts of things. So I want to say thank you to the Ashland community. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
That's true. We do live in one of the most generous communities
Yeah.
in the land, I believe. And this community has certainly embraced the Christmas spirit and the idea of Ashland being a Christmas town. And it's a beautiful thing, really. If you haven't been to the Candy Cane Trail or down to the Christmas tree to see it and then enjoy it, you should, because it is really uplifting. And so we have something very unique here, truly. With that, it is 7:16, and we can move right into our proposed 2025 appropriations for the city of Ashland, Ohio. I'll open up the hearing, and Larry, if you want to summarize, feel free.
Thank you. The appropriations that was presented to you, I believe, with your council packet, they were slightly adjusted over the weekend to reflect more accurate numbers. Please keep in mind that the appropriations heavily relies upon year-end cash balances of each of the funds. So at this point, we're having a hearing on the 2025 appropriations as we know it today. It has anticipated revenues that we have calculated based off of what we know as of today at that point. The cash balances will come into play when we get ready to adopt that. The hearing this evening is not an adoption of the appropriations. It is only to comply with the hearing process as we work through that. Ordinarily, we would not do this until after the end of the year, but this is a little unique this year, so we're trying to accomplish that ahead of time. Please keep in mind that the appropriations that you pass in 2024 will be applicable to 25, but at the same time, we will blend in those year-end cash balances to try to help if there is additional cash monies at the end of the year that will be appropriated in 25 as we work our way through that. It is not our intention to try to utilize that as best we can. So we're kind of working at it as we know it right now, and waiting for the end of the year to complete that process. The funds have not changed since for the last several years. There are 8 different types of funds within the appropriations. And all of those funds have funds within them, those types of funds have funds within them, except for the general fund, which has its own 17 different departments that operate out of the general fund, which is not the biggest fund, but it's pretty darn close as far as the enterprise funds are the biggest. The general fund funds the police departments, the fire divisions, and the law offices, the finance office, the mayor's office, and the engineering, and just a lot of departments that are set up purposely in this so that they operate through the income tax collection for the most part. General fund consumes 87% of the income tax allocation, which for 2025 is at the same number as it was in 2024 of $19,800,000. We have not met that yet, and it appears like we may not actually meet that number at the end of 2024. We'll see, but we still have some days to operate, so the tax department will continue to collect that tax, and it will be then put into the tax division and then separated and allocated out based off the allocation that you have previously approved. There are special revenue funds, there are debt retirement funds, there are capital improvement funds, as well as the enterprise that I previously had mentioned, as well as internal service funds and fiduciary funds. The special revenue funds are set up purposely, just as it says, for a particular purpose. It is not to where it can be used from one fund to another. It is set up purposely for that particular purpose and nothing more and nothing less. So we try to watch that. That is an important part of what we do, to make sure that the expenditures are coming out of the correct funds. Please keep in mind that the city is audited annually by the state auditor's office. So we want to make sure that we do that correctly, because if we don't, they will tell us about that. So in doing that, this evening's appropriation for 2025 has an anticipated revenue stream of about $66 million. The expenditures are $84 million. And as you can see, that cash balances at the end of the year is very important, a piece of the puzzle as we try to work through that. We never use all of our cash balances on purpose, because the city has to have some reserves held in reserve in order to continue to operate if we're to happen to have a slow spot. And during the year, in the middle of the year, why we do kind of slow down a little bit, we're starting to ramp up for the April income tax collection, but by mid-year, that has slowed down to very little trickling in. So we have to kind of hold some of that over in order to operate. Payroll doesn't go away. That's every 2 weeks, whether we like it or not. And so we have to hold reserves in order to meet those needs and to continue to function. So that's a very important piece of this as well. The 2025 appropriations does maintain the 250 employees that we employ today. We do not anticipate any reductions in any of the city services or the employment at this point. We're just trying to maintain status quo and continue to provide the services that our citizens have come to know and appreciate. So in doing that, that's kind of where we're at. There are always outside issues that we continue to observe and monitor. I previously mentioned at the first hearing about the possibility of an increase in pension costs. That did pass the House, but it is now into the Senate's hands to deal with, and we do suspect that that will probably happen at some point, some kind of a phase-in. The Senate probably will adopt that in 2025. The legislature was in their insight, did phase it in. It's not a just automatic 5% increase. It is phased in over a period of years, and it allows us to anticipate that expenditure, which is a very good thing, because if we had to immediately have to recognize that, that could be a little dramatic for us.
So would that be effective in '26?
It would phase in, I believe it starts, you've asked me a question, I don't know. I believe that it starts to phase in at the second half of '25,
Okay,
and then every year thereafter, it steps it up until it's completed,
I see.
which is a good way to do that if you're going to add costs, because we're a smaller community. Communities such as Cleveland, Columbus, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in costs across the state. So in doing that, that's something that we've been watching, okay? Other than that, the revenue is pretty much status quo from 2024 to '25. We always have increased operating costs. Everybody does in the coming year. Fuel goes up. Costs of operation just continue to go up, and there's not much you can do about that except try to anticipate that. But I guess the point that I really want to bring out is that I previously mentioned we're still appropriating to anticipate to employ 250 employees. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it is. Payroll is on the other side of $500,000 every 2 weeks. So it is not a small feat to fund, as well as the pensions and the taxes and the healthcare costs and everything else that go into operating a municipal government. That $84 million adds up real quick when you start doing that. So, but that's kind of where we're at. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
And as with any company, I believe, that has employees, the payroll is one of the largest expenses.
It is. Personal services, including wages, taxes, pension, healthcare costs, is the biggest piece of any operation in a department. Now, that doesn't mean anything for the debt retirement, because we have aggressively annually tried to retire as much debt as we possibly can. And within the 2025 appropriations, if everything goes well, we probably will be coming to you to an effort to do a little refinancing of some of that in an effort to cut some of our interest cost. Some of our bonds are out there a few years, and in doing that, if we can trim some of that term off, it may save us a few dollars in the long run. So that we can, there's always more need than there is funds to operate everything. And, at the water lines and the Fire Station 2 and just the ongoing maintenance of buildings that have been around for this front part of this building was 70 years old. So in doing that, I know that because that was the year I was born. So I guess I'll leave it at that. But anyways, it costs a lot of money to maintain those facilities and to heat them, provide utilities to them and things like that. So I think that I believe that I'm confident that this will work. It's a little unusual, I will give you that, to pass an appropriations. I've never done this before. I've always had to wait until the end of the year, get those balances, and then begin the process. But I did send it out to the directors so that they could look at it, and I did get a few comments back. Not a lot, but a few. So, and we want to provide as much funding as we possibly can based off the anticipated revenues that we believe that we will receive in 2025. Okay?
Great. Well, I for one have always admired the way you actively manage the city's finances, Larry, and want to say thank you for your good work.
Well, I appreciate that. It takes a lot of good people, and I may be the one sitting here, but there's a lot of other people behind me that are looking at this stuff daily in an effort to try to maintain it, because there's a lot depending on us to make sure that we provide that funding. We don't do those other things that those other employees do, but we do try to provide the funding to make sure that they get paid every 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And things continue to operate.
Council, any questions, comments?
Larry, I don't recall, is this document something you need to submit to the state the first of the year? I know it's a working document for the city, but is there any requirement that you submit this document? I know you have to do the budget, but I didn't know
Right.
if that was required.
That's a very good question, Councilman Miller. At this point, the process is that at the end of the year, I have to provide the year-end cash balances to the county auditor and the budget commission of the county, which includes the treasurer, the auditor, and a member of the prosecuting attorney's office. They review it, and then they send that back to me. A part of the tax budget that we did in July sets the rates for the property tax collection that the county auditor uses, and then they send us a certificate of estimated resources of what they think with the numbers I provided them in July to begin the process. The year-end cash balance numbers then go onto that sheet as well, and then it is sent back to me to begin the 2025 appropriations. To answer your question, nothing goes to the state, but everything goes to that county budget commission. So in this case here, it's going to happen real quick, all on the 30th, because we're trying to close the books 1 year and created appropriations for the next year at the same time. And so we'll be going and providing that information. I've already been working on my numbers based off of what I've provided you this evening. Again, it's not done until we get to that final push on the 30th to adopt it. But we have tried to keep up with that every week to change those numbers to reflect as much as we possibly can, so.
Well, I too commend you and your staff on the excellent work you do on our finances, and I think we all feel very comfortable with how they are because they are conservative. I think a couple of us had a question about big hike in the pension, but you explained that we got to be prepared for, that's inevitable. I mean, it's, whether it's
Right.
next year or the year after, it's gonna, and I think those funds needed to be shored up anyway, so, but be that as it is, I thank you for your work on that.
Anyone else?
I just want to, I want to make sure that there's no confusion, because you mentioned in the notes and you mentioned in your comments, anticipated revenue, 66 million, anticipated expenditures, 84 million. And so I just want to make sure people understand how it might sound like we're going to overspend our income. So just want to give you an opportunity to clarify.
Councilman Lawson, you're absolutely correct. The anticipated revenue is 66 million. If we spend every dollar in 2025, we would spend 84 million. we don't spend every dollar. Okay? Yeah, we wouldn't do that at our home, and we certainly don't do it here. The unfortunate thing that you have to anticipate is that, let's take, for example, the sanitation department. They have a fleet of trucks. Some of them are newer than other ones, and some of them probably should have been retired several years ago, but they're still using them, right? Well, those trucks cost a lot of money to purchase or lease or repair or whatever. A set of tires for a garbage truck can cost $3,000-4,000 all by itself. So you have to build an appropriations with some anticipation. Okay, so that, yes, you know that you're going to collect X amount of dollars in revenue, that year-end cash balances come into play, and that they help us build some of that anticipation, so that when you blow a motor in a truck, or you have to get a set of tires for a tractor or a sanitation truck or whatever, we have, unfortunately, our municipal governments run things to death, and then they give it some other department to run afterwards. That, for as long as I've been in municipal government, that is a true statement, in the fact that we may run a police car to death and put, a couple 100,000 miles on it, and then we give it to the Parks Department to use for a security vehicle. Or I'm making light of that, but my point is the same, is that those vehicles, that equipment, can run into a lot of money at any particular time. The sand filters at the water treatment plant, we have 2 filters where the drinking water filters down through it to take the items out of it so that we can drink fresh water. Each of those sand filters cost about $8 million each to replace. Now, we could go out and borrow the money to do that, but when you borrow money, well, they expect you to pay it back. And in doing that, we try to anticipate some of that as best we can, so that we can help fund some of that. Now, we don't just happen to have $16 million laying in the back room here, someplace where we can go and just do all of that at one time. So it does require the city to borrow some money in order to do some of these projects. But you have to build some of that anticipation into it as well. So with the cash balance, it does help us to do that. Does that make sense?
Cash balance is
So-
the offset.
18 million
Right,
in
I
cash
mean,
balance?
isn't it an easier way to say, and I don't know, I'm just asking, but, I mean, that statement says not including cash balances, so
Right.
it's safe to say that there's some amount of cash balances we don't know, because it's not
correct.
December 31st, so we don't know what the carryover is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's some amount that helps offset the difference between 66 million and 84 million.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's,
Yeah.
I thought I was understanding it correctly, and then.
Great question for clarification.
Right, I just want to get out, for
Absolutely,
clarification,
yes.
get that out there. Because 18 million sounds like a big gap.
It is a big gap, yes. Please keep in mind that no municipal government in the state of Ohio can project a negative cash balance.
Yes.
It is improper, unlawful, whatever you want to call it. But we are required to pass a balanced appropriations. And I'm using the cash balance and the anticipated revenues to meet the anticipated expenditures as I know that today. Now, that can change, and we don't use all of our cash balance in an effort to hold some reserve back. Please keep in mind that it takes 2 to 3 weeks to stop this train and 2 to 3 weeks to start it after the beginning of the year. The unfortunate element of this year is the first payroll of '25 is January the 3rd. Okay, so I don't get a whole lot of delay here between, and that's why we have to close the books on the 30th prematurely, open it up on the 31st get it ready for January 1st of 2025, because 2 days later, I have to write another $500,000 payroll. Okay, so it's a timing sequence, and that's kind of where we're at.
Very good. Any other comments by council? Hearing none, we'll open it up to the public floor. If anyone has a question for Mr. Paxton or council, more than welcome to.
Except for police officers.
Yeah. So, all right.
The process from here is that this is just a hearing. We will bring a formal adoption to you on the 30th of December. I would like to set a special council meeting for that day, and we would adopt this 25 appropriations. Please keep in mind, it can be tweaked throughout the year, as if we receive additional revenue, we certainly can tweak that and appropriate that for whatever needs to happen during the year. But this does get us back into business in relatively short order.
Very good.
That meeting in the morning, have we set a time yet?
Not yet. That was my next question. What time would you like that meeting? Larry?
If I could have it like mid-morning, if you're available or at your convenience, I'll try to work around that. It does take me probably an hour or two to just make sure everything's working properly, and I'm ready for that if possible, or we could have it at noon, or whatever you would like to have it.
Will there be donuts?
It,
Works for your-
if you show up on the
Noon actually
30th,
works
I
better
promise to
than
have
first
donuts.
thing. I have an
Would later
8:15.
in the afternoon work?
Anytime after like 11.
Oh, okay.
Anytime after 11 works good for me.
So, Jason, I think you're the one we have to work around more than anyone.
Yeah, I'm further out of town.
So, yeah.
so.
Noon
11.
or after, or 11 or after?
11:30 work, or no?
Then you can take me out for lunch.
You're gonna bring lunch?
Oh, okay.
We're eating donuts, did you?
Yeah,
I'm not.
you'll
eating
have a
one.
donut.
11:30 on the 30th?
Yes.
Yes? Work for you, Larry?
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, I gotta put that in.
Did you catch that, Mariah? Okay, good. All right. Well, hearing no remarks from the general public, then we'll close our hearing. And Mayor is not here for comments, so we'll move right to our audience for comments. Again, if there's anyone who would like to address council, I'm seeing heads shaking, so we're good. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Lawson.
Aye.
Workman.
Aye.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We are adjourned.